They say legends never die. But what if, in the Marvel Universe, legends are reborn? In the darkest possible form? For years, Tony Stark was the beating heart of the MCU. The man who started it all and ended it all with one snap. But lately, a storm has been brewing. Whispers across fan circles. Interviews with vague smiles. And that familiar twinkle in Robert Downey Jr.'s eyes, hinting at something bigger. Something stranger. Something darker. And what if the man who once saved the universe returns not as its savior but as its greatest threat? I know what you're thinking. RDJ as Dr. Doom? It sounds insane, but when you start to trace the threads Marvel's been weaving since Endgame, you'll see a pattern emerging, quiet but deliberate, a design that's been in motion long before Kang ever entered the stage. So let's dive into this theory, one that could reshape how we see Tony Stark, Victor Von Doom, and the very foundation of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Because what if Marvel's Endgame wasn't about endings at all, but about transformation? I've always believed Marvel plays the long game. They don't just write characters, they build mythologies. Every death, every comeback, every twist, it all serves a greater story. So when RDJ retired after Avengers Endgame, fans mourned, but Kevin Feige never called it the end. He called it a moment of closure. That phrasing mattered. It always does. Now fast forward to the Multiverse Saga. We've met variants of Loki, Strange, Spider-Man, and even Kang. Infinite reflections of familiar faces, twisted by choice, trauma, and time. Yet there's one face we haven't seen reflected, the one man who built the MCU from the ground up, Tony Stark. Why? Because Marvel's saving him, not for nostalgia, but for reinvention. Let's trace this theory back to its roots, to the very DNA of Tony Stark and Victor Von Doom. Both men are geniuses. Both men are egomaniacs. Both believe the world can only be saved by their own hand. Stark uses iron and innovation. Doom uses magic and willpower. Yet beneath those tools lies the same truth, control. Tony built armor to control chaos. Doom built armor to control destiny. Now imagine a multiverse where that control collapses and where Tony's vision of peace finally consumes him. In some dark corner of the multiverse, a version of Tony Stark sees what he's become. The weapons, the AI, the Ultron legacy, all leading to ruin. He doesn't stop this time. He doubles down. He decides the universe doesn't deserve choice anymore. And just like that, Tony Stark dies. But from his ashes, Dr. Doom rises. Think about it. The Multiverse Saga is setting up a war of variants. Loki introduced the concept. No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness expanded it. Secret Wars will explode it. In that chaos, who's the perfect symbol of control gone mad? Not Kang, he's chaos personified. Not Strange, he's still bound by morality. A Tony who realized that saving the multiverse requires not a hero, but a god, and that's where Doom comes in. Now here's where things get really interesting. Comic fans know that in Secret Wars 2015, Dr. Doom steals godlike power from the Beyonders, shaping a patchwork planet called Battleworld. He becomes God Emperor Doom, ruling over fragments of destroyed universes with absolute authority. Now translate that into MCU terms. Imagine Secret Wars as not just a multiversal battle, but a story of legacy. A war between ideas, freedom versus control, chaos versus order, humanity versus divinity. And at the center stands two men. One who gave everything to save the world, Tony Stark, and another who would burn everything to rebuild it, Dr. Doom. But what if they're the same man? When RDJ left the MCU, he didn't close the door entirely. He's hinted at multiversal possibilities. Kevin Feige has said, never say never. And now, rumors swirl of his return, but not as Iron Man. Why? Because Marvel knows you can't recapture that endgame emotion by repeating it. The only way to surpass it is to invert it. Instead of Tony's sacrifice bringing hope, his return brings fear. Instead of Iron Man as the ultimate act of selflessness, Dr. Doom becomes the embodiment of corrupted genius. Tony's worst traits unleashed. It's poetic. It's tragic. It's Shakespearean. And it's exactly the kind of long-term storytelling Marvel built its empire on. Here's the psychological key to this theory. Tony's guilt. We saw glimpses of it in Age of Ultron, Civil War, even Endgame. He's haunted by the consequences of his own brilliance. Every invention becomes a curse. Every act of protection spawns new threats. Now imagine that guilt stretched across multiverses. Infinite Tonys. Infinite mistakes. Somewhere one Tony breaks. He decides that the only solution is to stop humanity from failing itself. He discovers a way to merge science and magic, a hybrid of iron, man's technology, and Doom's sorcery, and through that fusion he becomes something new, something inevitable. Not Iron Man, not Doom, but Iron Doom. The clues have been hiding in plain sight. In Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, we see a world where the Illuminati ruled, a council of geniuses who controlled the multiverse's fate. Who founded the Illuminati in the comics? Tony Stark. Who destroyed it? Dr. Doom. And who's left to challenge Kang's empire in Secret Wars? The same man who built the empire in the first place. But let's pause here and go deeper into the meta meaning behind this theory. Marvel loves symbolic storytelling. Every return, every variant, it mirrors the real world. When RDJ returns, it won't just be Tony Stark coming back. It'll be Robert Downey Jr. himself, the actor who once fell, rebuilt himself and became a legend. His return as a darker, morally twisted version of his greatest role reflects his own evolution as an artist. Tony Stark was redemption. Dr. Doom would be temptation. It's the same man at two extremes of the human spirit, creation and domination. And if Marvel wants to make Secret Wars emotionally explosive, this is how they'll do it. Let's step back and look at the timeline. After Kang Dynasty, the multiverse is expected to fracture. Timelines collapsing, universes dying, heroes scattered. It'll be chaos. In that void, something or someone needs to seize control. Enter Victor Von Doom, but not the one we expect. Rumors already suggest that Doom may appear as early as Fantastic Four 2026. But what if his true identity is hidden? A masked figure manipulating events, gathering fragments of lost realities, building something monumental? Only when that mask is lifted we see him, Tony Stark. The shock alone would melt theaters, but beyond the shock it would mean something. It would show that in every universe, Tony's greatest flaw, his need to control, always leads him here. Doom is the endpoint of Stark's logic. Where Iron Man wanted to protect humanity, Doom believes humanity needs to be ruled. It's the same path, different conclusion. And here's where Marvel's genius lies. In the comics, Secret Wars 2015 ends with Doom's redemption. Reed Richards restores the multiverse and Doom's face, scarred for decades, is healed. It's symbolic of acceptance and humility. Now imagine that mirrored in the MCU. RDJ's Doom begins as a god and untouchable, unfeeling. But by the end, he rediscovers the humanity he lost. Maybe it's through a confrontation with another Tony variant or even Peter Parker, his spiritual son. In that final moment, Doom realizes he's not a god. He's just a man who wanted to fix the world. And that's how Tony Stark gets his true ending. Not by dying, but by forgiving himself. That's what makes this theory so powerful. It's not just fan service. It's thematic symmetry. Tony's story began with guilt and ended with sacrifice. Doom's story begins with arrogance and ends with redemption. Combine them and you get the perfect narrative circle. Marvel's greatest hero reborn as its greatest villain, only to rediscover what made him a hero in the first place. It's a full circle. 10 years in the making. Now let's address the real-world side of this. RDJ has said repeatedly that he's open to returning if the story is right. And Feige knows it can't just be a cameo. It has to be mythic. It has to redefine the MCU's direction. Doom is that opportunity, not just as a villain, but as a philosophy. He represents the shadow side of Tony's ideology, the obsession with control, the fear of chaos, the belief that only genius can save the world. Through Doom, Marvel could explore not just the multiverse, but the morality of creation itself. It's the perfect arc for RDJ's comeback, mature, tragic, and unforgettable. But before this story explodes into the multiverse-wide war of Secret Wars, Act 1 closes with one haunting image. A masked figure alone in a ruined laboratory. His armor hums with impossible energy. Arc reactor glowing green instead of blue. In his reflection, two faces overlap. One of iron, one of doom. And his voice, calm, deliberate, whispers, "I saw a universe die once. It won't happen again." The camera pans across the shattered landscape. Fragments of timelines. Broken Stark tech, whispers of magic. And there in that silence, the future of Marvel begins. Because sometimes, to rebuild the multiverse, you have to become the monster that destroys it first. The storm had already begun. The multiverse, once infinite, now cracked like a spiderweb under its own weight. And somewhere in the shadows, One man was piecing the shards back together, not out of compassion, but obsession. The man who once saved the world had learned the ultimate lesson. The world doesn't deserve saving. That man was Tony Stark, or at least what was left of him. In this act, everything changes, because this is where Marvel's future collides with its past. The genius who once believed in privatizing world peace now believes in monopolizing existence itself. Let's imagine where we are in the timeline. Kang Dynasty has ended. Time itself has collapsed. The Council of Kangs destroyed each other, but in doing so, left the multiverse in ruin. The TVA gone, the Avengers scattered across dying worlds. And out of the wreckage, a new order begins to rise, where led by a figure who promises salvation. He wears iron, he commands magic, and his face is hidden beneath a mask that hums with an arc reactor's glow. The people call him Doom, but those who remember the old world whisper another name: Stark. The MCU has always been about legacy, from Steve Rogers passing the shield to T'Challa's symbol living beyond the man. And that's exactly what makes this next chapter so powerful. Doom isn't a replacement for Tony. He's the inevitable evolution of him. Think about it. Tony was always a futurist. He saw problems before anyone else. Ultron, Sokovia, Thanos, every mistake came from one man trying to outsmart fate. Doom is what happens when that man stops trying to be human and starts trying to be fate itself. This is the Tony who lost Pepper, lost Peter, lost Earth itself across infinite timelines, watching versions of himself fail over and over. He's done watching. He's ready to rewrite the ending. Now let's piece together how Marvel could weave this into the upcoming slate. The Fantastic Four movie introduces Doom, but not as a typical villain. Instead, he's a myth, a name whispered by those who study incursions, a scientist-turned-sorcerer who appears when universes begin to die. Reed Richards learns of him. Strange fears him. Kang tries to erase him. But Doom cannot be erased because he isn't a man anymore. He's a constant. Thor's hammer melted into a reactor core. Strange's cloak embedded in a containment chamber. Every hero, every symbol, reduced to data inside Doom's perfect world. And yet he doesn't see tragedy and he sees victory. He saved them from chaos. He gave them order. But the cracks begin to show. Even gods make mistakes. Inside Doom's dominion, a resistance brews. Fragments of memory, echoes of who they once were, start to awaken. Peter Parker remembers Tony. He remembers the man who told him, "If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it." And now that same man is the suit. That realization breaks something inside the resistance. They realize Doom isn't their savior. He's their mirror. And Peter becomes the emotional key, Marvel's bridge between the legacy of Iron Man and the future of the multiverse. He doesn't want to destroy Doom. He wants to save him. Meanwhile, in the background, another player moves, a Kang. Or rather, the remnants of him. A surviving variant, stripped of his empire, watches Doom's dominion grow. He's horrified because Doom succeeded where he failed. Kang wanted to control time. Doom controls reality, and so begins the ultimate clash, not just of armies, but of ideologies. Kang fights to rebuild the multiverse his way. Doom fights to preserve his single perfect world. It's tyranny versus chaos, control versus freedom, iron versus time, and caught in the middle are the heroes. Now let's dive into the psychology behind this. Marvel has always reflected humanity through its heroes. Tony Stark was the symbol of progress, flawed but visionary. Kang represents our fear of the future, destiny locked in loops. Doom, however, is something far more haunting, the human desire to be God, to fix everything, to end pain, to control the uncontrollable. And that's why Doom works so well as Tony's evolution, because it isn't a villain's mindset. It's a human one pushed to its absolute limit. RDJ would crush this role. The warmth, the wit, the charisma, now twisted into a calm, godlike menace. Imagine him speaking with that same confident tone, but colder. Not angry, disappointed. Like a father scolding his children for disobeying destiny. That's not the Tony Stark we knew. That's the Tony Stark we feared. Now let's talk about the meta layer again. RDJ's real-world return. If he comes back as Doom, it's not just nostalgia bait. It's Marvel turning his own legacy into a mirror. The actor who once defined heroism now embodies corruption. The man whose performance built an empire now portrays the empire's undoing. It's poetic cinema. It's meta-storytelling at its peak, and it would give RDJ a performance that challenges everything he's ever done. Fans wouldn't just be watching Tony Stark return. They'd be watching RDJ deconstruct his own myth. And here's where the theory begins to bloom into Marvel's future. Once Doom's dominion expands, incursions stop, but time stagnates. His technology fuses Stark's AI systems with Latverian mysticism. His armor doesn't run on arc energy anymore. It runs on cosmic fragments left behind by the dying multiverse. Each universe that collapses feeds him. Each incursion fuels his power. This is no longer the Tony Stark we knew. This is Iron Doom, architect of the end. There's a chilling irony to it all. In Endgame, Tony's final words were, "I am Iron Man." It was a statement of self. A man embracing his legacy, his identity, his mortality. Now in this new story, those same words become a curse. Because iron isn't a symbol of protection anymore, it's a prison. Doom wears it not to save himself, but to contain the monstrous energy within him. The remnants of every universe he's absorbed. He is, quite literally, the sum of all Tonys. The last echo of a man who refused to let go. Marvel could use this to explore something deeper than ever before, the corruption of genius. We've seen Stark wrestle with guilt, control, and AI ethics, but now it becomes existential. Doom sees himself as the only being capable of stabilizing reality. When other heroes appear, fragments of the multiverse's survivors like Deadpool, Spider-Man, or Strange, they view him as a tyrant. But Doom sees himself as the last hero left. He tells them, "I did what none of you could. I fixed the multiverse. You call it control, I call it survival." This would make him not a villain, but a tragic god, one who genuinely believes he's right. And that's exactly what makes this story resonate. Because deep down, he might be. Now let's tie this to Secret Wars. In the comics, Battleworld is a planet made from fragments of destroyed realities, all ruled by Doom. The MCU could reinterpret that beautifully. After the multiverse collapse, Doom collects the remaining shards of timelines, universes where heroes like Spider-Man, Logan, and Deadpool still exist, and forges a new world. Not because he wants to conquer it, but because he wants to preserve what's left. He calls it the Iron Dominion. It's his version of paradise. A structured world where chaos is outlawed, and every timeline's pain is erased. But beneath that order lies a chilling truth. There's no free will here. Every soul is coded into existence like a program. Every hero resurrected, but obedient. Doom doesn't save people anymore. He manufactures them. This is where the emotional weight hits, because Marvel could use this act to explore what happens when a hero's dream becomes his nightmare. We've always loved Tony for his flaws, his arrogance, his heart, his humor. But here those same traits become weapons. His compassion becomes obsession. His intelligence becomes domination. His heart, literally the arc reactor, becomes the prison of countless souls. Imagine a scene where Doom walks through a hall of armor, each one representing a hero he's preserved. Captain America's shield fused into armor plating. In the background, Reed Richards begins to unravel Doom's truth. He realizes that the energy sustaining Doom's world isn't cosmic, it's human consciousness. Every soul from every collapsed reality, trapped inside his reactor system. Doom didn't just save worlds, he consumed them. And when the Resistance learns this, the final act begins to form. A mission not to destroy Doom, but to free the multiverse from him. Because in the end, even gods need saving. The last image of Act 2 is chilling. The Resistance, led by Spider-Man, Strange, and a variant Tony, infiltrates Doom's fortress. They find him meditating within a blinding sphere of energy, countless faces flickering across the armor's reflection. He opens his eyes, calm, knowing, and he says, "I knew you'd come. I built you to." The revelation hits them all at once. The Resistance itself was part of Doom's design. The rebellion was his final safeguard, a way to test whether humanity still deserved freedom. Doom stands, his mask reflecting the faces of every hero he's ever known. And then, with quiet finality, he says, "If you can stop me, you deserve to win." The multiverse trembles. Light floods the Dominion, and Act 2 fades to white.